As an introduction, I'd like to quickly touch on what is a VNF descriptor. So a VNF descriptor is something similar to this, and this is the simple use case with a single VDU, meaning a single VM here. This VDU is typically described by an image, typically in like QCOW2 or OVA format. It also has information on how many vCPUs is needed, how much memory it needs, how much storage, etc. From that, we describe what we call the internal connection points of the VDU, and those are these ones. Then the VNFD has its own external connection points, which are described by these. So in the simple case, there is a one-to-one mapping between an internal connection point and an external connection point. I have downloaded an image file and a day0 file, so I've put that in this directory here. I've also configured the image server, which is part of the Nfvo bundle. And I've done that by adding the image server setting. To give access to those files, I've configured the image server, which is part of the Nfvo bundle. And that looks like this. So if I check in settings, I pointed out the document root. So this is where I put the day0 file and the image file. So with that in place, I can now do a curl to check if the file is there, and it's all good. It returns 200 OK. So now I know that the image is available. I can do the same thing for the CSR day0 file. Just make sure it's available. So at this point, I've prepared my image and my day0 file for deployment. I'm now ready to start to create my VNF descriptor according to this image. What I've done is I've taken some notes on the requirements for the CSR1KV that I'm going to use while creating the VNF descriptor. So you can see that it has 4 vCPUs. I'm going to create with 8 GB of memory. A storage 0 is a special value that you in OpenStack can use to indicate that it should use the size indicated by the image. So let me bring up my CLI and go into config mode. So let's create a VNFD called CSR 1000V. The first thing I'm going to create are the external connection points, i.e. these ones. So I'm going to create 3 of those, connection point left, right, and management. Okay. The next thing I will do is I will create 2 descriptors. One is called the virtual compute descriptor, and that specifies the number of vCPUs and how much virtual memory to use. So I will create a virtual compute descriptor that I'll simply call the CSR. In that, I'm going to say that it's going to have 8 GB of virtual memory. 8 GB. And I'm going to specify the number of vCPUs to be 4. And the next thing I'm going to add is the virtual storage descriptor for the root drive. So I'll create the virtual storage descriptor that I call the CSR as well. The type of storage will be root, and here I'm going to specify 0 to indicate to use whatever is specified in the image. So with that in place, I can start creating my VDU. So I'll have a VDU, call that the CSR as well. And in here, I'll again start with the connection points. I'm going to specify an internal connection point descriptor that I call interface left. I'm going to connect that to the external connection point left. And now I'm going to do the same thing for right and for management. Okay. After that, I'm going to point to my virtual compute descriptor and my virtual storage descriptor that I previously created. I'll say this is going to use CSR, and the same thing for the virtual storage descriptor. Now to the software image descriptor. This is where I specify the type of image and where to find the image. So I'm going to set the container format to bare. I'll set the disk format to QCOW2 and the image to my image server, which I have up here. Like that. And last but not least, I'm going to specify the device type for this. So if it's a managed device, NSO needs to know what NED to use to manage this device. Like that. Okay, so now we're done with the VDU. The last thing we need to create is a deployment flavor. So deployment flavor is a way of combining multiple VDUs into different combinations. In a single VDU, VNFD, as we have here, you typically only have one deployment flavor. So I'm going to create that, just call it normal. In that, I'm going to create a VDU profile for my CSR. And here I can specify for the entire deployment flavor the minimal number of instances and the maximum number. So I say that this CSR can be instantiated between 1 and 10 times. And now I'm going to create two different instantiation levels which actually specify the number of instances to start with. So I'll create an instantiation level that I call small, where I'm specifying the VDU level for the CSR and the number of instances to be 1. And then I'm going to create another instantiation level that I call large, VDU level, CSR, number of instances will be 7. And the last thing I'll do is I'll point out the default instantiation level. I'm going to set that to small. So with that in place, we should have a complete VNF descriptor for a CSR 1 kV.